Hi everybody, this is Rachel Long and I did my developmental case project on a little boy that I have been calling Oscar for the case of this project. Oscar is a Caucasian male, 56 months old. He will turn 5 at the end of December of this year. And he is currently living with his adoptive parents and 4 siblings. So in doing this project, some of the implications of social work that made it really important to kind of understand development was to really be cognizant and aware of milestones and developmental norms to ensure that we are putting in or recommending appropriate interventions, particularly for this little boy. He was exposed to illegal substances in utero, as well as neglected and around drugs from probably the age of, infancy all through his removal at the age of 3. And where DCS took custody of him, his parents worked the case plan and it was not successful and the parental rights ended up being terminated. I am actually familiar with this little boy. He is actually my best friend's now son. Was her, I guess, maternal nephew. It was, I am familiar with this little boy and kind of observed throughout the process how he has developed since being in their care. So what really helped me is being really aware of developmental milestones. Some struggles that I actually had in this is that being that I wasn't in contact with the biological family, I did not know whether he met milestones between the ages of 0 to about 3. And so that was a struggle in making sure that we had most accurate and up-to-date information. And the adoptive parents didn't really know that information either. They were around for celebrations, birthdays, Christmases, that kind of thing, but really wasn't involved on the day-to-day aspect because geographically they didn't live in the same area. So in doing the ASQ with populations in the Southwest, I live in Tucson currently. And so our population down here is, we have a lot of Hispanic families being so close to the border. We have a lot of Native families also with being so close to the Tio tribe and the Pasquayaki tribe. We also have a lot of refugee populations. And so being aware of some of those maybe language barriers or cultural values is something for a clinician to keep in mind in doing like an ASQ. So that's something that if I were doing this in like my day-to-day line of work, that I would have to keep that stuff in mind and be aware of what cultural norms are accepted for their population. Their cultural norms and our developmental milestones might be very different, so it might make it less accurate. The last question for this project was, what did I learn from this experience, and to kind of reflect on my experience. I really learned having most concrete and up-to-date, the importance of having developmental history for this kiddo. Being that I didn't have that, it was a little bit of a challenge. However, I was very aware of this kiddo from age of removal to his current age. So that would have been really helpful had I known whether, he walked on time. I can speculate that his probably developmental milestones were not met in the time frames just due to the nature of his history. And to be aware that this developmental history might not be available if you're working with kids in the foster care system, because for him it most certainly wasn't. And so if you were doing one on a kid who has been placed in multiple placements and no family placement, that may be a challenge. I also learned the importance of having a loving family that can meet the developmental needs of Oscar. He has really flourished and since he has been adopted and been placed with my best friend and her family. I also learned really the importance of early interventions and how the impact of drug exposure and neglect significantly impacted Oscar's development. He had night terrors. He now has sensory challenges, and so really learning those interventions was very, 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 very helpful. However, I do wonder, being that he's such a bright and lovable little boy, would that have, had he have not been subjected to the trauma, the neglect, and the abuse that he had, if he would have been able to meet some of those milestones and not have the struggles that he has. It also reminded me, and I think most importantly, that children are resilient. That even though Oscar has been faced with these challenges, he has a loving and supportive family that are willing to go the distance with him, that are willing to put services in place and do the interventions that he really needs to help him survive and to flourish further in his life. And I absolutely believe that he will do that. He's such a likable young man, and really, really wants to please people and be around people, and is such a kind-hearted little spirit. So, but it really reminded me, I think most importantly, that kids are resilient. So thank you very much. I've really enjoyed this class. Best to you all. Thanks.